Hello everyone, Ben here and welcome back to iRacing. It's the start of Season 4 and we are back on track. We've switched series though, we're now in the LMP2. New car, new season, really looking forward to it, and we've got off to a brilliant start. We're in a low split, but we've managed to put the car on pole position and our pace in qualifying was pretty good. This is about the third race that I've ran in the car, so I'm still getting used to it. But wow, what a car. It might well be my new favourite car in sim racing. It's certainly, by a distance, the best car I've driven in iRacing. Phenomenal. If you enjoy the video, do remember to leave a like, get subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on sim racing content that we've got coming up. But for now, let's get down into the cockpit as the rolling start gets underway. Here we go then, leading the pack into the final corner at the Hungaroring, a new track for iRacing this season, and we get on the gas and we've actually managed to get a decent enough gap back to Eric Clark in second place, about a third of a second. We spot our braking as late as we can because I don't want to get ran into from behind. That sends us a little bit wide on the exit, but actually not too bad up on the curbing. We get 1x for it, but it's worth taking that to avoid the risk of getting shunted from behind. We've maintained first position through the opening set of corners. It looks like there's a bit of side-by-side behind us between Melchior and Clark, but Clark has held that position. And then as things stand, Mayor is in fourth position. So all in all, quite a clean and positive opening set of corners for us as we're halfway around the lap here. Very tight and twisty track, as any of you who've raced it will know, and a big challenge to get LMP2 cars around here. I mean, you know, these are like rocket ships, these cars, and you spend an awful lot of time in this lap being very patient on the throttle, as you'll see here. Of course, we're being extra tentative on this opening couple of laps as the car comes up to temperature. Very easy to lose the back end. Not quite as planted as you might expect these cars to be, certainly in the lower gears. They don't like going through corners like this. You can easily light up the rear tyres if you get on the gas too early and end up feeling the back end come around. And what I've really noticed through this race is it's really about getting some oversteer into some of these corners, but not too much. Managing that oversteer through the corner and getting on the gas at the apex as early as you can and straight lining the exit to the corners. Not easy, but really engaging and enjoyable, and we've had a positive first lap there. Then we crossed the line with a second gap back to Eric Clark. We've consolidated our good work in qualifying and held the lead. So, new car, new series. Why have we switched out of the USF? Well, as you might have gathered, the content from the USF series dried up last season. I just couldn't get a break in the races. I was continually being punted off by other drivers, and nothing really that I did on track was worth doing a video around. So decided to freshen it up. We did run 2 seasons in the end of the USF, so a good time to move on. We got our B license at the end of last season, and that allows us to run in this, the LMP2 fixed season this year. I'm not going to approach it in quite the same way that I did the USF season though. I don't own enough tracks to run a full season in inverted commas for iRacing. I own 5 at the moment, so I'm very much just testing this out. I didn't want to kind of spend loads of money in between seasons again, and frankly the track choices for this season of the cars that I owned were nowhere for us. It was going to be another 60-70 quid to try and run say the Radical, for example, which is a car that we own and I have been tempted to run in the past. So this felt like a kind of pragmatic option. We did invest a little bit more. That's thanks to channel members, so a big shout out to everybody who has joined the Broca Paddock Club to support the channel. That allows us to keep running new series. Let's take a look back at the start then. We get a good breakaway from the pack. That's the advantage we have in being on pole position. We come into the first corner, but just look at Melchior in third place there. As he dives to the inside, he very nearly doesn't get the car slowed down, which would have ended up with contact between at least one of me or the guy in second place. So thankfully he did. He's ran wide though through that second part of the corner. Let's go on board with him to just see how close this was as he comes into the corner. Look at that, he actually gets on the brakes earlier than both myself and the guy in second place, but then he releases the brake pedal to just try and roll past the car in second. Thankfully, he manages to get the car slowed down, but then he's ran wide through this part of the circuit. That means he can't hold second position and he has to concede it. We'll also take a little look on board here with Mayor, who's running further back in the field, but he pulls off a brilliant set of overtakes by just getting on the brakes earlier than everybody else up ahead, manages to undercut them as pretty much everybody in the top 5 got in a little bit deep into T1, and that has put him up into 4th position. Unfortunately, he then runs deep into the next corner as well. Can't get on the gas, he's got cars down his inside, so he's going to lose some of those positions that he gained. It compromises his run through the right hand kink as well. So we're climbing the hill now to the most challenging corner on the circuit. He loses another position through there. He's down into second gear and up on the curb, so that's going to slow him down as well. And unfortunately, all of that great work in T1 is undone. We resume the race then about 5 minutes in. Sessions in this series are 20 minutes long, so they're a little bit longer than the USF races that we're used to. But that's no bad thing. It allows us to essentially stretch the legs of these prototype cars. We've managed to build a gap to Clark behind to just about 1.5 seconds. We're quicker through this middle section of the lap. As you can see, the relative board in the bottom right hand corner of the screen is showing a 1.7 gap, 1.9 gap now in fact, as we've basically had a better run through that tricky set of lefts and rights. My focus at this stage is just trying to push as hard as I can, but without making any mistakes. You'll see we've got the fastest lap at the minute is a late 1:36. I think I've got pace in the car to get down into very low 36s, and now the car's coming up to temperature and I'm feeling more confident in it. I'm going to just try and extend our gap to the drivers behind, because it's very easy to make a mistake, and what I want is at least a bit of a buffer to the guys behind, so that if I do perhaps not get a full spin on, but I end up locking up into a corner, I'm not immediately under pressure from the guys behind. So it's all just going to be about trying to build a gap, manage that gap, and run as safely as we can, all the while just getting more used to this car. And as I was saying before, it really is a fantastic driving experience. It just comes alive immediately. It really seems to suit the handling and the physics model of iRacing. Unlike the USF, which to be honest I always felt like I was kind of nursing through corners and nursing through races, really frightened to push because I would lose the back end. Almost immediately in this car I felt like I could actually race it. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of drivers who are going to be quicker than I am in it, particularly in these early stages, and the lap times that we're setting here in a split of 1.1k are not going to rewrite any record books. But it just felt to me comfortable to push the car through corners pretty early on, and that is the first time I've ever really experienced that in iRacing since being in the Mazda Cup car in the Rookies. So immediately a more enjoyable experience. The Hungaroring track, which is new for Season 4, which we're driving on here, really well done. All the tracks in iRacing, in my experience, are it's probably the best version of Hungaroring that I've raced on. It is laser scanned. You get all of those undulations. Going to just take a little break from our footage because we're leading comfortably at this stage to take a look back at a fight further down the field. We're following here the car chasing Justin Johnson. The guy up ahead is Mayor, who we saw making those places at the beginning and then slipping back through the following corners. And this was a great battle that played out throughout most of the second half of the race, with Johnson trying to put some pressure on Mayor to make a mistake and to squeeze past. And I suppose what I was most impressed with here is that the cars are racing closely together with one another. It's in the mid-pack, but there's never really any suggestion that there's going to be a collision or an accident. The driving is very fair. Now, I don't have enough experience in this series to know as to whether that is the kind of standard that we're going to be looking at this season, but I really, really hope it is, and it's exemplified here on the very last lap of the race. So again, it's Mayor and Johnson racing together. There's a back marker in white up ahead. Now look at this. Mayor gets slowed down by the back marker, which really puts Johnson onto his rear wing. This is a big chance. There's another back marker off to the left hand side there. In the USF, I'm absolutely positive that the guy running behind there would have stuck it down the inside, with very few exceptions, and potentially caused a collision. Johnson's racing hard here behind. You can see that because the car is squirming around as he's trying to get the gas down early, but very respectful driving between the two, and in the end, my order would hold off Johnson to hold the position there as he crosses the line, but just really good to see that kind of racing in the mid-pack. So we've set the fastest lap of the race then as we rejoin a 36 flat. So that's exactly what I was talking about earlier on in the video. There's about 4 minutes left of this race and we've extended the gap to Clark behind to around 2.7 seconds now. We haven't come under any serious pressure so far. We've just very slowly, very methodically extended that gap by a couple of tenths a lap, and then we have a gap back to Saeed in third place of around 8 seconds, which is brilliant because it means if we do get involved in anything, and up ahead there's some back markers coming up, so we know from last season at Oran Park how difficult that can be. We've at least got a cushion back to third place. So this is the first time I've come up against back marker traffic in this series. Not quite sure what to expect, but brilliantly McElvoy gets off the racing line to the left hand side. Now whether that's the right etiquette or not, or whether it should be me who's making my way past, I don't really mind at this stage, particularly because at the Hungaroring it's so difficult to overtake, particularly in this middle section. There really is only one line. It's known as Monaco without the walls, so really I needed him to give me the space. He did so very predictably, and that is brilliant, and it means we lost the minimum amount of time to Clark behind. We've now got Miranda and Lecroix up ahead, who are going to hopefully do likewise and get out of our way as painlessly as possible. We come to the inside. Miranda's run out wide. I don't know whether it was deliberate or not, but we've got the space now to get past him. We're going to be running in the slipstream now of the car up ahead into T1. I don't think we're going to make it past him here. We're just too far back, but we do get on the brakes much later than he does, just as a matter of course. He locks up on the corner exit. We're able to give him plenty of space, and we are past. So, all in all, that was pretty comfortable compared to how it might have been. So I think we've been a little bit lucky there to come across drivers who have been alert and aware enough to let us by. We fast forward then to the very last lap of the race. We're still 2 seconds ahead of Clark. We've got another car just up ahead that it looks like we're going to have to navigate on this final lap. We're really now just looking to bring this home. So I'm not pushing in the same way that I was earlier in the race. We're still holding the fastest lap of the race, which is great to see. The gap to Saeed behind has come down a little bit in third place. So both Clark and I having to navigate back markers has perhaps allowed him to close in slightly. But this should be a comfortable win from here, as long as I don't make any mistakes and as long as Smith up ahead doesn't cause us any problems. Unfortunately, we're catching him again into this middle section, which is the worst part of the lap to catch a back marker. But coming into the chicane, he locks up his brakes. I don't know whether it was deliberate or not. He was going in far too fast. And in the end, we're able to sneak on by, as is Clark behind us. So the gap still around 2 seconds. We've now only got about a third of the lap to go before we will be bringing home a brilliant first victory in the LMP2. And just again guys, what an enjoyable drive this has been. I know it looks straightforward. I know Clark doesn't appear all that big in our mirrors because of the way that the perspective is set up in iRacing on the rear view mirror, but he's been behind us all race, around a second or 2 seconds, so the pressure's always been there. These cars are not that straightforward to drive, but they're very enjoyable to drive, and we've withstood any pressure. Really good, methodical, straightforward, lights the flag victory, and that is just really enjoyable. Fantastic. Very, very pleased with that. There's our first experience, and you know, I think it is a contender for my new favourite car in sim racing. It's been a little while since I've driven something with so much power, rear wheel drive, because obviously we've had the touring car series, which has been taking up a lot of my time. Without a shadow of a doubt, the best car that I've driven in iRacing. Really very, very enjoyable. And in the end, a very good win, some good championship points, and I'm looking forward to future rounds in the season. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, leave a like, get subscribed, and I will see you next time.